Flooding on alert tonight. As Magna Selassie shows us, some residents are just beginning to get a sense of the damage that's already been done.
But the water was right above the windows.
Ken Bowers has lived through many sleepless nights as his basement turned into a disaster zone.
Yeah, I'm beat, and I'm not young either. So it's tiring and it's stressful.
His ordeal started a couple of weeks ago as the water started to creep in. He had 4 pumps running, but eventually the water covered the windows.
And we came down in the morning anyway, and the 4 pumps hadn't kept up by that time. They'd wiped out the dryer. The dryer was floating. The furnace was underwater, like the motor part, and all this was underwater. So that was sort of disheartening.
It could have been so much worse. We spoke to the owner of this collapsed home yesterday. He says the town is looking to see if it can be salvaged.
If not, the town will come in here and destroy it before it gets washed out into the lake, which then would become a real hazard.
Today, even more water as the rain came barreling down. Residents are doing their best to keep trekking. The troops are doing the same. Their numbers have swelled to nearly 300. Today, they were out going door to door, doing welfare checks and surveying areas of concern.
As you can see, there's quite a lot. And the concern I'm seeing now is if any of this breaks free and makes its way downriver, it's going to pose a very big threat to the home, not even the homes down there, but also the people that are living there.
There is some relief on the way. Today, the mayor said he heard from the province a disaster recovery assistance program is being activated.
This program provides basic financial assistance for small businesses, homeowners, and tenants impacted by the flood. It is important to note that it's not a replacement for insurance. Insurance comes first, but supplements those insurance proceeds should there be gaps.
But he says this would be available to those whose primary residence is here. So cottage owners are out of luck. Staying positive, Ken Bowers doesn't think it should take too much to clean things up here. He says for him, it could have been worse.
You get down and you get upset and then you just go, what are you going to do? You just roll with it.
Magda Celestis, CBC News, Bracebridge.
The city is also dealing with rising water levels. Toronto is under a shoreline warning today. That means Lake Ontario could rise so much our beaches could be damaged. Alicia San has the story.
Our rate of rise is pretty similar to what we saw in 2017, but we started off with the lower lake level in April. So that puts us in a slightly better position.
There's room to grow.
There is still room to grow, but we're going to continue to see some impacts. Whether or not we start to see levels like 2017, we'll only know in the coming weeks.
Water is brimming pretty much all around us right now. Compared to the disaster happening elsewhere in the province, Toronto and GTA shores are holding up for now.
It's important for people to understand that beaches do fluctuate. That is part of their nature.
Experts say it's not so bad that we have to relieve pressure at the dams, plus doing so would make it worse for others downstream.
We can't control the inflows into Lake Ontario. They're totally unregulated, and the Lake Erie is record right now. Lake Superior is close to record. We are at the mercy of Mother Nature when it comes to the inflows that are received into Lake Ontario, unfortunately.
Sandbags are back out at the island, seeping through in some spots. The Conservation Authority says that the island is at least better equipped to stay dry this time.
Measures like berms on Toronto Island, some of the sump pumps that were put in there so that we can more effectively drain the islands if we start to see higher water levels, as well as some of them are risk assessment type studies that have been done and mapping that's been produced to support our municipal partners in the response phase. Now we're ready for this year.
All right, let's get right to Nick Cernkovich. Of course, that was our Alicia San reporting now. Nick, I'm afraid to ask, more rain and water on the way?
Yeah, unfortunately there is, Dwight. Now, we've got a couple stories going on here. Of course, we've been talking about Bracebridge and Huntsville, and now we're also talking about the rainfall in the GTA, and sometimes they differ and sometimes they don't. The heaviest of the rain that we saw with this system today was actually further to the north, and that looks to be kind of pushing off. Right now, what we're seeing in the GTA GTA, though, is our heaviest of the rain for the day today. There are still rainfall warnings in effect to the north there, but this is the rain showers taper. In total, though, areas up north could see, by the time all is said and done, by Thursday morning, as much as about 45 millimeters of rain with this particular system. There are also freezing rain warnings in effect as well along that front. For the GTA, we had rain showers in the morning, then a break, and now we're into sort of that second wave that I talked about yesterday moving across the region, and the heaviest of it just moving through the downtown core right now. But we are watching yet another system that is going to move into the Golden Horseshoe come Friday morning, and this one here will be our next significant rainfall event. Now, we'll give you full details on just how much you can expect, but for now, here's a look at the forecast through the next 24 hours. 6 degrees tonight, 12 for tomorrow morning. We actually will see the sunshine tomorrow afternoon, but then the rain returns for Friday, as I mentioned. Full details coming up.
All right, we'll see you then. Thank you, Nick. Okay. Earlier this week, we told you about Toronto's rat problem and the critter complaints across the city. Well, coming up, why the solution could be found in Alberta, where they got rid of the rodents many years ago.
It can be done, and it can be done on a block by block or a building by building approach. It's going to take effort from all residents as well as government agencies, city agencies to help deal with this. It's not going to be a small task. I can see that.
A man was shot and killed in North Etobicoke this afternoon. The victim is believed to be between 25 and 30 years old. He was found near the corner of John Garland and Humber College Boulevard. Police updating the investigation a short time ago, saying they have a number of witnesses who are now being interviewed. So far, though, there is no information on a suspect. And police are investigating an altercation in front of the 519 at Church and Wellesley. This is video of part of the incident. Now, police say a man with a microphone and flyers showed up at the northeast corner. He had a sign with religious slogans, and according to the 519, started preaching about the sins of the LGBT community. A large group gathered around and started arguing with the man. Police say no one was assaulted or suffered visible injuries, but the 519 says that the incident was violent in its nature.
This is not a freedom of speech issue. This is actually a matter of hate-fueled, targeted violence. Somebody with a body camera, somebody who had a camera person, decided to come into a community to elicit a response that was violent, to create chaos. It was designed, and its motivations were to disturb and disrupt safety for people in this community.
Toronto Police are requesting your help with this investigation. If you have any video or pictures of the incident, they are asking you to upload it to their website by filling out a quick form. That's at torontopolice.on.ca/Church Wellesley. The Ford government is about to table new legislation that's going to see the province take over TTC subway expansion. It's been in the works for a while now, but the legislation will also bring some changes that could have a big impact on your commute. Lisa Shing explains.
The fact at the end of the day is we can get the job done.
Ontario's transportation minister announcing legislation to take over subways in Toronto.
We can issue zoning orders. We can compel utilities to prioritize relocation work.
That's despite the tension between the province and city council over sharing responsibility for 4 new subway lines. The opposition was quick to point that out.
Earlier today, the Ford government announced their intention to start a hostile takeover of Toronto's transit system. They're basically freezing those folks out.
Even though there are few details on how the so-called upload would work, Eric and Toronto's mayor indicated all was well so far.
Mayor Tory and I have had great conversations, and that's going to continue.
I thought the process that was taking place at that table, where they've been meeting even in recent days to discuss all the different questions, was a process that was, I think at the moment constructive in nature.
The legislation enabling the subway takeover will be included in a bill that spans a wide range of traffic issues, including increased fines for drivers going slowly in the left-hand lane and careless driving around construction areas, allowing solo motorcycle riders to use Ontario's high-occupancy vehicle lanes, and it's opening the door for higher speed limits on the 400 highways.
The faster a vehicle is going, the more dramatic and the more serious the potential is for injuries or death in the event of a collision.
Let's not make the mistake of increasing speed limits while reducing our ability to monitor the safety of the highways.
Urick says the province will undertake pilot projects and launch public consultations before making any changes. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Since Airbnb first arrived in this city, critics have slammed the short-term rental service for taking apartments out of Toronto's rental supply and in turn inflating prices. But new data obtained by CBC News suggests that Airbnb listings in the city make up less than 1% of all private dwellings. Farah Morelli breaks it all down for us.
Hey, how's it going? How are you?
Nice to meet you.
You too, you too.
Welcome to Claire Vandermeersch's renovated Roncesvalles home.
This was a separated wall, so all new kitchen, all new walls down, all new windows, wiring, plumbing.
For $350 a night, depending on the season, you could rent this detached home on Airbnb.
I only rent when I'm away on holidays or out of town for a reason.
Gotcha, which is only like a couple weeks.
Yeah, a couple weeks a year. Yeah.
Vandermeersch is one of a small percentage of all private dwellings that make up Airbnb listings in Toronto, according to new data CBC News obtained. We looked at a snapshot of entire home listings from one day in April. We found more than 9,500 listings in Toronto, managed by 6,500 hosts. Most are in the city's waterfront neighborhood, about 2,300. But the total number of listings make up only about 0.8% of all private dwellings in the city.
There are thousands of units being taken off the rental housing and the housing market in the city of Toronto.
Critics of Airbnb have long argued short-term rentals are taking over the city. So at first blush, 0.8% seems pretty small.
Even 1% or less is by far enough to have that impact.
But this expert, who has studied Airbnb for 3 years, says that number needs to be put into context.
But if you compare it to the amount of housing that's available for new tenants or new homeowners, it actually is a much, much higher percentage and will have a really serious impact on the new housing that's available.
Which is why the City of Toronto says it must move ahead with regulations.
Even though it's a small percentage, people that are renting their homes out on short-term rates instead of long-term rates is driving. We're seeing rents continue to increase in this city.
The city's regulations on short-term rentals would only allow people to rent out their principal residence and only for up to 180 days a year. But they're currently being challenged at the local planning appeal tribunal.
Like if you set certain rules and guidelines, and people agree to them, then they stick to them.
If and when those regulations come into effect, they won't affect people like Claire, who, in many ways, is the textbook host the city wants to allow.
Interesting. Now, Farah Morelli joins us live now. What's Airbnb saying about the data we collected?
Well, we did reach out to Airbnb, Dwight, and it told us that it does support, as it has before, told us regulations on home sharing. But it told us that independently obtained figures like the data that we collected are, quote, unreliable, but it did decline to do an interview with us to explain why that is the case.
Okay, and there's some more Airbnb data that you've collected. This time about 311 complaints. That's when you call the city?
That's right. So one of the ways you can complain about short-term rentals in your building or in your neighborhood is by calling 311. And what we did is we actually compiled all of those complaints over an 8-year span. And spoiler alert, they're on the rise. And we spoke to a woman who lives in the building, which has the most 311 complaints.
And we've had, incidences of real moments of disgusting, unsafe incidents, vomit in the hallways, vomit in the front hall, blood in the foyer 2 or 3 weeks ago, and that was there for multiple days because that was connected to the path part of the building. Although that's the entry, I have to go in with my key card.
We will tell you which building that is and where these complaints are coming from on tomorrow's show.
Looking forward to that story. Thank you, Farah. Fedora couriers in the city are hoping to gain more employment rights by joining the Canadian Union of Postal Workers.
I want to be able to work and not worry like, okay, do I have to hustle extra hard because I know that if I get injured, it's going to be on me to pay for everything. I want an actual health benefits plan, something, because right now there's nothing. They claim that there is, but I got $210 a week, and I live in downtown Toronto. That's barely, if anything. I'm sure for most people, it's not even enough to cover their rent.
You know, on good days, I'll make an hourly wage that I feel really good about, and then other days I'm making less than minimum wage, and I'm feeling like very upset and angry about that. So a big part of the problem is that it's not stable.
The app-based delivery service pays their couriers $1 per kilometer from the restaurant to the customer's door. In addition, couriers receive $4.50 from each customer. Foodora classifies couriers as independent contractors, which takes away any legal labor protections, including EI, sick days, and guaranteed income. Now, Toronto couriers are part of a growing number worldwide who are organizing to gain employment rights. In Finland, couriers recently won the right to have a break room to warm up, dry off, and use the restroom. In the UK, couriers have participated in strikes. He's the viral Instagram star that's chock full of positivity, and he's from right here in Toronto. Dante Colley is brightening up social media one post at a time. Coming up, I speak with the IG star to talk about why he started spreading joy and how he's now reaching millions.
It's motivating and recharging for me to see that it's bringing people up out of whatever they may be going through, because we're all going through our own things every day. Even me too, but it's like, it's nice to see that there's a community that is looking for what I'm looking for, and that's like a little bit of positivity on the internet.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Toronto's Jewish community is gathering for Holocaust Remembrance Day tonight. As part of that, it's to commemorate a life-changing program for the survivors of the Holocaust. The Taylor Project was created after the Second World War to bring displaced people to Canada. Our Taylor Simmons has more.
Didn't go back and...
Despite meeting only a year ago, these three men have a decades-old connection.
He was a remarkable man.
Larry Enkin's father, Max, is the founder of the Taylor Project. After the Second World War, the program gave more than 2,000 displaced people, more than half Jewish, the chance to have a fresh start in Canada. The project marked the end of restrictive immigration policies and a solution to a labor shortage in Canada, including in the Jewish-dominated garment industry.
I was always interested in what happened to the Taylors. They were able to take the adverse conditions of their arrival and slowly but surely become part of the national fabric of this country.
Decades later, Enkin decided to find the Taylors and their families and bring them together to share their stories. He's now found 300 people, including the Applebaums.
My mother was 16 when the war broke out and the Germans invaded Poland and was eventually sent to Auschwitz together with my father. So both of them were Auschwitz survivors.
The brothers knew their parents eventually made their way to Canada, their father as a tailor, but not how. Last year, they noticed a piece on CBC Toronto's website.
And it turned out that we were part of the Taylor Project. And I know to my mother and father, it would be meaningful to them to see us here talking about the war and showing that the war did not destroy the Applebaum family.
The Applebaums say it's important for them and families with the same common thread to connect and share their stories.
We see anti-Semitism is still around, and it's not just anti-Semitism, it's hate.
We're trying in every way possible to build on this legacy and educate and provide knowledge to future generations.
Plans are also in the works to turn the Taylor stories into a book, a documentary, and a traveling exhibition. Taylor Simmons, CBC News, Toronto.
A Toronto man who uses a wheelchair has filed a human rights challenge over Ontario's cannabis retail system.
The cost is too high for me and for other people, other disabled people.
Ken Harrow says he uses cannabis to manage several health issues, including a severe joint condition. Harrow says he can't afford to get his cannabis delivered on a regular basis. He also says there are too few legal pot stores and they're not wheelchair accessible. Adding, in the past, he got his cannabis from illegal dispensaries. He wants a temporary stay on enforcement of pot regulation so those dispensaries can continue to operate. A South African Olympic athlete has lost a landmark legal case. Caster Semenya had appealed rules issued by track and field's governing body, which would force her to chemically lower her naturally high testosterone levels. Renee Filipponi has more.
For more than a decade, Caster Semenya has been making headlines, not just for her speed, but also her genetics and her naturally elevated testosterone levels. With today's ruling, if she wants to continue to race against women in middle distances, she will have to follow the new rules and take drugs to lower her testosterone. The Court of Arbitration for Sport found that the IAAF's rules are discriminatory, but that they are necessary, reasonable, and proportionate means of achieving the IAAF's aim of preserving the integrity of female athletics.
The panel also stressed that while much of the argument in this procedure has centered around the fairness of permitting Ms. Semenya to compete against other female athletes, there can be no suggestion that Ms. Semenya or any other female athlete in the same position has done anything wrong. This is not a case about cheating. Ms. Semenya is not accused of breaching any rule. She has done nothing whatsoever to warrant any personal criticism.
The governing body for track and field argue that people with a difference of sex development have an unfair advantage. Semenya's lawyers challenged the rules on the basis of human rights, saying she was born a female, raised as a female, and should be able to compete as one. They argue her advantages in sport are no different than any other genetic variations.
The very difficult thing for Castor is all she wants to do is compete the way that she was born naturally. And in a world where we're telling athletes not to put any prohibited substances in their body because we're so concerned about doping, we think it's deeply ironic that this rule requires athletes to take substances to change who they are naturally.
Semenya and her lawyers are considering an appeal. The runner says she will rise up and continue to inspire young women and athletes. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, London.
For the first time since releasing the Mueller report, U.S. Attorney General Bill Barr testified today before a Senate Judiciary Committee, and many of today's questions focused on the tension between Mueller and Barr himself. Lindsay Duncombe explains.
Today's hearing had the Attorney General William Barr on defense, explaining his decisions and actions related to the rollout of the Mueller report, especially his decision to release a 4-page summary of the report's conclusions weeks before the redacted report was made public. That concerned Special Counsel Robert Mueller so much he took the highly unusual step of writing a letter to Barr, a revelation reported by the Washington Post hours before today's hearing. Mueller said Barr's summary did not fully capture the context, nature, and substance of his work. Democrats see evidence of a cover-up.
Being Attorney General of the United States is a sacred trust. You have betrayed that trust. America deserves better. You should resign.
Barr said he wanted to get the report's baseline conclusion that no crimes were committed out quickly and release the report as soon as redactions were made.
That's why I think this whole thing is sort of mind-bendingly bizarre, because I made clear from the beginning that I was putting out the report, as much of the report as I could.
The Attorney General expressed surprise that Mueller did not make a decision on obstruction of justice charges and defended his own decision that no charges were warranted. Barr was also accused of lying to Congress in previous testimony when he was asked if he was aware that the Mueller team reportedly had concerns. He answered no at the time. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Washington.
Dozens of rooming houses in Parkdale have been sold off over the years, leaving hundreds of people without their homes. But now a new pilot project has led to the city and a charity actually purchasing a rooming house. I'm City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly, and I'll have that story coming up and how they're hoping it's going to help change affordable housing in Toronto.
A follow now on a story we brought you earlier this week. Over the past decade, the city has been fielding more and more complaints about rats every year. In some areas, rat calls to the city staff have nearly doubled. It has many wondering when and if the city plans to take action. As Greg Ross found out, the city should take some tips from another province who got rid of their rodents.
Oh, he's stuck. Okay, I got him.
It's a problem that some residents in East York are taking into their own hands.
Oh, he stinks.
The city's increasing rat population is also keeping exterminators busy.
From last year to this year, we are looking at about a 35% increase in rat-specific calls.
It's even in parts of Toronto not typically known to have rat problems. It has many residents calling on the city for help.
It can be done, and it can be done on a block by block or building by building approach.
And John Bourne would know. He's retired now, but for years he was the regional supervisor for Alberta's pest control.
The rats were coming in from the east along the Saskatchewan-Alberta border.
Bourne says the first step was shutting off the point of entry by setting up pest controls along the border with Saskatchewan. Then they took an aggressive approach to eradicating other parts of the province that had infestations.
We went in with firearms, we went in with live active bait, but that I mean bait that was only requires a single feed by the rats to produce death. And we also went in with traps.
By the mid-2000s, Bourne says Alberta was almost completely rat-free. Here in Toronto, city staff are studying our rat problem. A report is due by the end of the year. The mayor says he has some concerns about what a rat prevention program might cost.
It's a huge cost, and that cost comes from the same money that's meant to pay for affordable housing or transit, and we have to try and do our best to achieve a balance. But I'm certainly not unwilling to look at it.
Bourne agrees the costs could be high, but he says the savings it created in Alberta were even higher.
We know that for every rat that we were able to eliminate in Alberta, we were saving farmers and consumers a lot of money, because the damage that rats create in not only food consumption, damage, structural damage to buildings, electrical fires caused by wire chewing by the rats and so on, is enormous.
There are things you can do to protect your home from rats, like storing garbage in rodent-proof containers, reducing clutter outside your house, and eliminating food sources for rats. You can go to cbc.ca/Toronto for a complete list of rat prevention tips. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
The city and a local charity have teamed up to buy a multi-million-dollar rooming house in Parkdale. It's a first-of-its-kind partnership, and housing advocates say the innovative project should inspire more efforts like it across the city. City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly has the story.
The last 20 years, massive evictions, constantly. I don't think really a day goes by where you do not hear a story about someone's address.
Lynn Skye has been a tenant in Parkdale for the last 4 decades. In recent years, she's watched rooming houses sold off, leaving the residents forced to sleep on friends' couches.
Are you safe in that situation? Yes. But can you access any funds to acquire housing or housing programs? No, you're forced into the shelter system. There's something uniquely wrong with that. It creates more problems. It destabilizes more humans on a different level than not just even having a roof over their head.
But today, city officials announced this rooming house and its 15 tenants won't have that fate.
We thought it was time to have some good news in the city of Toronto.
Councillor Gord Perks championed the project at City Hall, with council providing $1.5 million in funding to help the Parkdale Neighbourhood Land Trust buy the property.
We're going to own this building permanently and make sure that it stays affordable for Parkdale residents.
That means keeping rents under $900 a month.
What we're seeing right now in Parkdale is that many rooming houses are selling, and the new landlords, many of whom are corporate landlords, are aggressively increasing rents and evicting tenants.
They're actually targeting the most vulnerable among us.
This tenant advocate says people aren't able to stay in the neighborhood like they used to.
The reality now is that once you are displaced from your unit, the answer is often homelessness.
So how widespread is the problem in Parkdale? One study from the Land Trust found at least 28 rooming houses have been sold off over the last decade. That means an estimated 350 people have been displaced. There's growing hope rooming houses will be a bigger part of the conversation as the city prepares its next 10-year housing plan, while the mayor says broader housing offerings need to be the focus.
Most people would, in an ideal world, like to have something more than a room in a house.
Sky says for many low-income residents, that's the only thing they can afford, meaning the city needs more of this.
I think that this is absolutely a pivotal moment that should be seized, emulated across the province, if not across the country, in lieu of a dire housing crisis everywhere.
Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Nick, we have been looking for the sun. Have you seen it anywhere?
I was looking too, Dwight. I just call it like it is. I don't make the weather. However, I am putting in a phone call here with Mother Nature, and I'm thinking maybe the weekend is looking pretty good. We'll get to that in a second, and that actually shows up in my weather headlines because, you know what, we all need something to look forward to. Tomorrow we will see a little bit of sunshine through the afternoon. The rain does return for Friday morning, though, but by the weekend we've got to warm up back to seasonal temperatures and also some good sunshine in there as well. For tonight, we're still dealing with rain. As I told you about yesterday, the second wave is now coming through, and so we're seeing that sweep across the GTA. That should taper off in the next few hours, or couple hours rather, and then we're just looking at showers. The heaviest of it pretty much off to Lake Ontario right now, but it's quite a line that stretches down to the south, and we're going to see another wave regenerate into Friday, which I'm going to talk about in a second here, but that means more rainfall on the way for Friday morning. We still have special weather statements, though, in effect east of us, and these, of course, issued by Environment Canada for an additional 10 to 15 millimeters rain, although this takes us outside of the GTA. It goes more toward eastern Ontario. For us, by and large, in the next hour to 2 hours, we're done with the heaviest of the rainfall. Then a few spotty showers through the overnight. Cloud cover tomorrow morning. By the afternoon, though, we'll see some sunshine in there. Friday morning, though, that's when our second wave comes through with another system. Now, I wouldn't put too much stock in these numbers because thunderstorms can be pretty local. So it does say 8 millimeters, but in general, I'd say around the Golden Horseshoe, 10 to 20 millimeters in the forecast for Friday morning. For tomorrow, winds are going to be pretty light, but because they're sort of easterly here, just pushing off of the lake, that's going to keep temperatures down a little bit for us. Right now, we're sitting at 8 degrees in the GTA, going down to 6 tonight. By the time we hit tomorrow, we're looking at highs of 12 degrees. This is more close to the lake. So you get away from the lake, temperatures will probably spike around 15, 16 degrees. But in Toronto, I'm calling for 12 just because of that breeze off of the water. 15 on Friday, morning rain showers, and then a nice stretch of sunshine and seasonal warmth for Saturday, Sunday,
I see you found it for us.
Yeah, I had to look hard, though. I really had to look for that one. Cheers.
I'm Deanna Sumanak-Johnson here at Artscape Sandbox in the Entertainment District. And just minutes from now, I will talk to the writer and star of a new CBC Gem drama called The 410. This has everything. It has family drama, it has drug crime, it has family belonging, lots of other important themes. I'll talk to the creator coming up after the break.
If you have been thinking about buying an electric car, there's good news for you today. Ottawa is now giving rebates of up to $5,000 on e-vehicles with a purchase price of $55,000 or less, all in a bid to cut down on greenhouse gas emissions. But is an electric car right for you? David Common looks at some of the pros and cons of plugging in your ride.
As of today, if you get a zero-emission vehicle like this one, the federal government will give you up to a $5,000 rebate. And look, we're here with an electric vehicle, an electric vehicle, an electric vehicle. All of these electrical vehicles in the place in Canada where there is probably the highest density of EV electric vehicle ownership. It's Salt Spring Island off the west coast of British Columbia. Now, what are some of the sort of the big concerns that people have about electric vehicles? Something like this, it's going to have no problem going 250, 300, 350 kilometers in one charge. But not all electric vehicles are like that. Some of them are more like 50 or 100, 150, a lot of them in and around that 150, 200 range. And that's something that really kind of pushes people back. Those ranges getting a lot further. Even this Nissan Leaf, which was one of the first ones out there on the market, it's seen the range gradually increase. Then there's model selection. Like look at something like this, a RAV4, it's a bit bigger. Well, we don't actually have vehicles this big, many of them in Canada. This one actually comes out of the US. They don't make it anymore. There are other ones that are larger too, and so vehicle availability, particularly for larger families, that continues to be an issue. There are some plug-in hybrids, so ones that will run for 50 or 60 kilometers on just an electric charge, switch over then to a gas engine. And then there, of course, is the question about charging. So if you look back here, this vehicle is charging right now. How long does that take? Really depends on the charger. There are rapid chargers. They can do a vehicle in 30, 40 minutes. For the most part, though, people are going to be charging at home. It's going to cost you about $1.50, maybe $2 to do a full charge, depending on which province you're in. Other places, yeah, if you're on a road trip, those rare occasions for many people, then there are an increasing number of these chargers right across the country. David Common, CBC News on Salt Spring Island.
As we head to break, here's a look at where the market's closed today. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This market update is brought to you by SSQ Insurance, reminding you that stronger communities make every person stronger.
The red carpet is rolled out tonight for a new CBC show set and filmed in Brampton. The 410 tackles issues facing the South Asian community in the GTA. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson is live at the Artscape Sandbox for the premiere. And Deanna, what's the inspiration behind this show?
Well, I'm going to ask this young lady right here. Sapinder Raj is an actress and writer and producer of this, so many hats.
Yeah.
Tell me, I interview actors all the time, and they always tell me, like, if you can't get your favorite perfect role, I guess in your case, you create it, if you can write, which you can.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the inspiration behind the 410.
Well, I think in that vein of, you know, writing the perfect role for yourself, I think for me as a writer and as an actor, it was also important to write a story that meant something to me. So
and the story of your community as well.
Exactly. So, you know, the 410 is about this girl who's an Instagram wannabe, but her father is a truck driver. And my family comes from trucking, and I know this world very well. And I thought that it's a side of the South Asian community that we don't see in popular media. And it was really important for me to tell that story of blue-collar blue-collar workers, of factory workers, of truck drivers, of the industry that is the backbone of a lot of our communities. So,
But Daddy has a little job on the side as well. Which is where it all goes.
Yeah, for sure. So she finds out that her father is trying to smuggle drugs across the border, and she has to move home to take care of her grandmother, and sort of, you know, falls into his footsteps. So, but it was also important for me to talk about women and patriarchy in our culture, and to tell a story where it's a daughter that saves her father. It's not the son coming in to take on the father's role. Instead, it's the daughter. So we liken it to like the Indian Godfather in that sense, which I think is accurate.
I think which makes you like Scorsese, which is kind of cool, I think.
Yeah, I guess so. I think of myself as me, but I mean, it's an important story for the community, and I think that Scorsese, in that sense, that the Italians were a new immigrant community that was trying to make a place for themselves. You know, I think that the Punjabis and the Indo-Canadian community are not different in that sense. So yeah, sure, I'll be the Indian Scorsese. I got it.
It's so great to see, as we discuss representation on screen and representation of women. This show definitely has both, and it's premiering on CBC Gem tomorrow, correct?
Yep, CBC Gem tomorrow.
Thanks so much, Dwight.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I spent a lot of time on the 410. One of Toronto's pioneers of multicultural radio, Fitzroy Gordon, has passed away. Gordon started the Black-owned radio station G98.7. He was also Dr. Love overnights on Chin Radio for many years. His wife confirmed his passing on Instagram, saying, "I know Mr. G was well loved by our listeners and the community at large. As such, rest assured that at the appropriate time, there will be an opportunity for you to express your love for him." In a statement, Mayor John Tory said Gordon was, quote, "a towering figure in our city who brought people together." Fitzroy Gordon was just 65 years old.
Hey guys, my name is Dante Colley from Toronto, Ontario, and we're gonna do some stuff with CBC today, and I'm gonna show you a little BTS of what I do.
You might not know Dante Colley by his name, but you might recognize his dance moves. The 21-year-old from Scarborough went viral earlier this year for his emoji-filled videos where he shares motivational messages.
Get your shine on today because you can. You are number one.
His dancing videos have been viewed millions of times and caught the attention of celebrities including Beyonce, Jennifer Gardner, and Will Smith. Ariana Grande even tapped Dante to dance in her latest music video.
How are you?
Now back from his latest trip to LA, we got a chance to catch up with Scarborough's newest internet star. So this is where the magic happens.
This is it. I started making videos in like 2015 where I didn't want to fake it anymore.
What do you mean when you say fake it?
I think it's creating that facade of what you want other people to see you as, and that was the challenge for me is, and I'm sure it's the challenge with all of us as well with social media, it's the constant comparison of what should I post next or like what should I do next. So for me, I was like, I don't want to put up this thing anymore. I just want to be me and have fun.
Why do you think it is like people are so drawn to it?
I still don't really get it, but it's motivating and recharging for me to see that it's bringing people up out of whatever they may be going through, because we're all going through our own things every day, even me too, but it's like, it's nice to see that there's a community that is looking for what I'm looking for, and that's like a little bit of positivity on the internet.
You're you know, a black kid in Scarborough, and I talk to young people about this. There's a certain stereotype that comes with that. And I know growing up, you've had this thing, you've got to act a certain way because of the way, you've got to be a certain way. You seem to have very comfortably thrown that off and say, yo, this is me.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to be me. That's not an easy thing. So like for the young people out there watching this who may be going through some of what you went through as a young person, what's your message to those kids?
I think my message is that we're all on our own unique path, and we're all so different, and we all carry things that no one else can carry. Like we're all so amazing in our own unique ways. As long as it feels good in your heart to do what you want to do, that shouldn't stop you from doing that. And no one else's opinion should matter. We've all had a purpose before people had opinions of us. You know what I mean? Like we've always wanted and strived for something, but it was until somebody had something to say that we kind of stepped back and didn't really know if we should be doing that anymore. I think it's important to just stay true and be you.
Two of the managers from the agency, we all have a group text. So
my mom has been somebody in my life that has taught me so much about just staying true to you. She was in love with something and people told her that she couldn't do it and she couldn't make a career out of it. And now she's proven them wrong and opened up 2 businesses over, like, of course it takes time.
And raised the young man here.
It's like, she has been like both parents for me. She's been the mom and the dad. And that's something that I never want to take for granted because it's made me who I am today.
Has he changed though with this attention, you think?
not at all. He's always been well known and well loved and well liked, and you know.
So you've been Dante's mom for a long time.
I've been Dante's mom for 21 years, so I kind of know him.
Why do you think now that people connect with him so well? It feels like he has like kind of this magnetism about him in his personality.
People love kindness. And I think now, with everything that's happening in our world, we need more kindness. We need to share love more than ever. And I think that that's, you know, social media is an easy way for us to connect all of those things together.
I mean, you have this big platform now. Do you feel some sense of responsibility now that you have this to continue to spread these positive messages?
I think it's not taking it on as a job necessarily, but staying true to like all of what I've done.
Yeah.
And bringing more awareness to like mental health and how important it is to deal with the most vital organ of our body, our mind,
Yeah.
that we sometimes like don't really pay attention to. We're all gonna make mistakes, but it's taking accountability for those mistakes
That's
and owning
important.
up to them and finding what the next step is going to be to elevate that.
So you should do interviews, because you know my next question is, what's the next step, Dante? What's next?
It's just continuing to find ways to make people happy, whatever that may be, whatever that next chapter holds. I'd love to dance for Rihanna and Beyonce one day.
Your positivity, but it's infectious. I'm smiling just from talking to you.
Hey, it's all of us. We're all in it together. But
yeah,
I think I don't even know what to say.
Don't worry. Riri, get this man on stage. All right, we're good. Thanks,
Thank you so much.
Now, if you follow Dante on Instagram, you already know this from his story today, but he landed in Los Angeles. Who knows what project he's down there working on. Coming up, some more positivity for your Wednesday evening. We are asking you to join us for this prom after the break. Now stay with us. We're coming right back.
Find another partner. And when you have that partner,
Hundreds of students came together in York Region today for a very special event. It's called the Best Buddies Special Needs Prom. Now, in its 8th year, it's a chance for these students to celebrate what makes them unique.
Best buddy, make some noise for yourselves right now, guys.
The students talk about the Best Buddies Prom all year long, and it's not just an opportunity to celebrate their friends that are graduating, but it's a chance for them to all get together and dance and have a good time and let loose and feel completely free, not judged, and included, and celebrate their achievements.
It's a party and royal, and I enjoyed the dancing and the girls singing along, and it was the best prom ever.
It's going wonderful. I don't want to go home yet. Ever until 3 o'clock.
What is great is that I get to dance. You know, I became aware of the Best Buddies Prom when my classmate mentioned when I was in grade 9, and I guess I didn't want to go there. And it's the same year later, I said I decided to go there. So and I like the Best Buddies Prom so much. So thank you.
No, thank you. That was a lot of fun. I like the young man said, we need to go till 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
3 a.m. That was great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
The rain, not so great, but the sunshine is coming. We just have to wait a little bit.
Yeah, we just have to wait a little bit. We're actually on the tail end of it right now. We've got that line of showers just kind of moving out of the GTA. We'll get a bit of a break for tomorrow, and then we're back into the rain for Friday morning. Weekend looks good, though.
Yes,
That's what I'm looking
and next
forward
week,
to.
too. We're looking forward.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, that's our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Now, as Nick said, it's a messy one out there. You're looking right now at Woodbine Beach earlier this evening. Look at these waves, man.
Wow.
It's coming in. We'll see you back here tomorrow, everybody. Have a great night.